ships in the Suez Canal are being diverted after a massive container vessel ran aground. The accident blocked one of the world's most important waterways. The ship turned sideways due to bad weather. Well, it's since been partially refloated and moved, and traffic could soon resume. Well, the Suez Canal connects the Red Sea with the Mediterranean. It's a vital shipping route between Asia and Europe. And more than 10% of global trade passes through the canal, and 30% of global container capacity moves through it. Let's take a closer look at what this means for the global supply chain. We're joined by Vandana Hari of Vanda Insights. Well, there's a slight improvement in the situation. Do you think it's too early to tell if the global supply flows will still be affected?
Good evening. So fortunately, it's not every day that we have a huge vessel getting stuck in such a narrow waterway. So there isn't too many precedents to go by. So as you mentioned, the latest reports are that after more than 24 hours of being stuck, it seems the vessel has been partially refloated. But, we wouldn't know until it is actually moved away from its location. So it still needs to be tugged away. And in the meantime, we have, reportedly 100 ships that have backed up all the way into the Red Sea and the Mediterranean Sea on the other side. So indeed, it is a worrisome situation. As you just mentioned, this is a vital waterway. Nearly 5 million barrels per day of crude and refined products moves through this channel every day. In both directions. So there is flow of oil from Asia and Middle East into Europe and US, and in the other way around as well. So, certainly something that will keep the market on tenterhooks until the waterway is completely opened again.
Vandana, also, what is the impact on oil prices that have already been volatile? It was up some like 3% earlier, and yesterday it was a 6% dive.
Yeah, so, this is almost a paradox of the oil markets, not just today, but for the past several weeks and months, I would say that while global oil demand has not come back to normal, nearly still 6% of global consumption still stays out of the market as a result of last year's, the COVID demand destruction. And we actually have spare capacity. We have 7 million barrels per day of oil being locked out deliberately by OPEC and its allies. So, some people wonder in a situation like this, why are we worried about certain delays? The thing is that that oil which has been locked out is still in the ground. So this is the paradox for the market, that there isn't enough demand. There is plenty of supply, but at the same time, there is this undercurrent of concerns that we have these, bottlenecks, and especially in the Middle East. Now, this one is not a geopolitical issue, but of late we have seen quite a few attacks, especially from the Houthi rebels in Yemen. A couple of weeks ago, there was a major attack on the biggest oil port in Saudi Arabia, the Ras Tanura. So, this is something that is keeping the market on its toes for sure.
Yeah, and Vandana, before we go, just one more question, circling back to our first point. Well, we're seeing a worsening global container shortage situation. Is this going to impact it in any way?
So I'm not an expert on container movements. I look at the oil markets, but I would add to my previous points to say that the demand, and you mentioned oil price volatility, I think that's going to stay with us. I think demand has become a major demand recovery has become a major concern again. We saw a very steady decline in COVID cases globally from around mid-January through February, but it has crept up again in a lot of, especially across Europe. There's problems over vaccination, distribution of vaccination. Even in the US, cases have started plateauing instead of going down sharply as they were. So, demand concerns on the one hand, and, supply disruptions and fears of supply disruption on the other, that just makes for an atmosphere of, continued volatility in oil prices.
All right, thanks so much, Vandana Hari. She is the CEO of Vanda Insights.